No, it's like I said, rooms for it to Oh my god.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, hi, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you all for being here today. If you don't know who I am, my name is Odette Marie Rodriguez, and I'm the program coordinator here at the Center for Women's Studies. If this is your 80th time here, if it is your first time here, thank you for being here. For folks that don't have a place to sit, okay. We might be able to get some chairs later. There are some seats in the back, but thank you all for being here. I want to begin by saying that the Center for Women's Studies recognizes our collective responsibility to acknowledge our colonial history. Our campus sits on the unceded traditional lands of the Oneida Nation. We recognize that discussions of gender and other systemic issues cannot exist without acknowledging the influence Haudenosaunee women had and have on feminist movements. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. Join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events. All right, I'm going to go over a few upcoming events, and then we're just going to roll right into it. On Wednesday, tomorrow, we'll have our Women's Studies Mixer here at the center at 4:15. Please join us to celebrate the beginning of a new semester, enjoy some light refreshments, and connect with other members of the Women's Studies community. I'll be there if you want to chat me up, just saying. Thursday, there will be a Model AU Brownback series of the Somalia Briefing, which will present an overview of the history and state of affairs of Somalia. The Friday night film series, Thursday at 11:30. The Friday night film series, The Last Black Man in San Francisco, is screening at 5 p.m. in Golden Auditorium. And also, if you have not heard, Women's Studies is starting a book club on February 28th at 3:30, I believe. You're welcome to join us. Our first read will be Sonia Renee Taylor's The Body is Not an Apology. You can contact Professor Susan Thompson for more information. And if you need a copy of a book, please reach out to us. We can get a copy to you. During the presentation and Q&A, please use microphones to ensure accessibility so that we can all be part of the conversation. Please remember to clean up around yourselves. And if you can help stack chairs, that would be greatly appreciated. My interns would just be thankful. I made eye contact with Noha at that exact moment. All right, so Progress Period is a relatively new group on campus. They're going to extend their history and give you some background. The Center for Women's Studies has had a kind of a closer knit relationship with Progress Period and its inception with our intern Kate Barber, but those are all things that they'll go over. So I'm really grateful to Progress Period for being here today and bringing this conversation to us, and I will allow them to introduce themselves. So if you can give a round of applause, please, to Progress Period.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming out today. Really appreciate you guys showing up. We're really excited to be here. So as Odette mentioned, we are Progress Period. Before we get into everything and jump in, we're going to introduce ourselves. So I'm Dora Mendelson. I'm a first year and co-vice president of Progress Period.
I'm Rainey Barenblum. I'm a sophomore and I'm also co-vice president of Progress Period.
My name is Parna. I'm a freshman and I'm the community outreach director. And I'm Julia. I'm a sophomore and I'm the publicity and marketing coordinator.
So that's us. That's the e-board. So we're here today to facilitate kind of a discussion and prompt some thought about what period stigma is, how we can destigmatize the conversation about periods and menstruation, and how we can make that conversation inclusive to all genders on campus, and especially thinking about what access to period products looks like at Colgate is something we're really interested in addressing. So, Progress Period has two main goals. The first is to fill all the dispensers on campus in the women's and gender-neutral bathrooms with organic and healthy period products. Doesn't seem too complicated. And the second is to generally destigmatize menstruation on Colgate's campus and to provide different types of products for communities in the area, such as like prisons. We recently did a drive this semester. What did we give the products to? What was the organization called? Restore for Hope. Help Restore Hope. So we do different drives like that. So we're going to start with a POLI-V. I don't know if you guys know about that. So can everyone get their phones out or computers? So this is just an anonymous poll to kind of evaluate different questions about period products and stigma. So if you type in the code, you can text message different questions. So if everyone wants to. Sorry? Yeah. So you can text DORAMENDELSO 697 to 22333. Wants to join, then text your message.
Just let me know if you need help. I can come around and help people out. You said it's
Yeah. Okay. Text DORA. Yeah. Okay. Text DORAMENDELSO 697 to 22333. It's right at the top. Let's see. Got one person. And these are open-ended questions, so they don't need to be necessarily answered in yes or no, just whatever comes to mind. Okay, got it. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next question.
The question is, have you ever been told by a professor at Colgate that you are not allowed to go to the bathroom during class?
We think some of the answers from the previous question are showing up as well. So the next question is, have you ever been asked if you're PMSing because of your mood? All the time. It's something we heard. Has there ever been a time when you needed a menstrual product and couldn't get one on campus?
That's sweet, but it's just
Was your period education satisfying, and was it single sex? Sure. So for example, for me in 5th grade, the boys were taken out of the room, and all the girls were left behind. And we watched a movie called Just Around the Corner, and it talked about menstruating. I don't know if others share that same experience. So in terms of your education throughout middle school, high school, college, how have you learned about getting your period using menstrual products? And then when learning about it, were you in a room with a particular gender?
Why is it important to talk about periods?
What does allyship to period progress or menstruators look like?
Not like the club, the concept.
Are your period products sustainable and non-toxic? / do you care about that?
yeah, definitely. Actually, sorry.
Okay, probably not if it was cheaper. No clue. Menstrual cup. Cora, too expensive. No, too expensive. Sorta, no clue. No, I don't know. No.
So it seems like Cora is an example of a company that really cares about sustainable and non-toxic products, because in reality, a tampon, a menstrual cup is going inside of you, so you should pay attention to where your products are coming from and how they're going to treat your body. There are many other examples besides Cora, Mrs. L. So it's something to definitely consider. Okay, so are there any general reactions to this that we've discussed, or any questions you have? As you can see, we all saw the answers. We were surprised by what other people said, or what was the biggest words are the most popular ones. Just like general reactions to that poll.
Your reactions are valid, just anything goes.
I think just in general, the fact that we all like agreed about most of the questions goes to show like how we're all feeling the same thing. And like personally with my friends, I don't really talk about periods much. So I just think that like seeing that a lot of people feel the same way we normally don't talk about this topic is kind of cool, and I guess we can all like, support one another and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
I was actually surprised that this was a meeting and I was really excited. And it's like I feel like it's really dehumanizing how like the access to like education on periods and just like your body is like non-existent. Like only like I saw a couple of yeses up there about the education thing. So it's really surprising how little bit of people like actually have access to that education and how valuable it is. And I just feel like it's sad how like we could like, pour ourselves into like education about like history stuff like that, but not like our bodies, and we literally have these bodies for life.
Absolutely.
I thought it was interesting that when the question about like have you ever been asked if you're PMSing when you're like angry or upset about something, was like got like verbal reactions as well as on the board. Everyone was like, oh yeah, for sure. Like that's just such a common, like I hate that it's such a common thing, but like everyone, it seems that everyone in this room who menstruates like had a similar reaction. Like they've definitely heard that before. So that kind of sucks.
Okay, so next up we're gonna watch a video. This video is satire, but it's not meant to call out men or call out any one specific gender. It's just to get people thinking about what it would be like if everyone menstruated and would our access to products be different, etc. So just a fun video to get people thinking about a different world where we didn't have to deal with menstruation only in menstruators.
Hey, Dad.
Yeah, buddy.
I think I got my period.
Let me help you.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. Yeah, sorry. Do you have a tampon? Yeah. Thanks. Just let it grow out. Come here. I'm not sure.
Me too.
So any general reactions to that video, and specifically how did it make you feel about gender roles in our current society?
I just thought it was interesting how when, especially when the two men are walking, and they were just like so casually like talking, I'm like, hey, can I have a tampon? It's like you, like even girls today, we can't even do that, like in like public spaces like that. Not that we can't, but we don't feel comfortable enough to do that. So it's just weird seeing men do that, but it's also like pretty cool, I guess.
I thought it was kind of interesting how like a lot of us were like, laughing at parts, and I think a lot of it was based on like who we expected to say something about having a period or not, and I think that just kind of like feeds into how we think about people who are menstruators and who are not, and that's something just to be conscious of in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that an important thing to remember about like this conversation is making it as inclusive as possible for everyone who menstruates, and recognizing that that's not something that should be taboo or shut down. Thank you for sharing.
So these are just some photos that, if any of you are familiar with Rupi Kaur, she is a poet, and she posted these to Instagram. And they're obviously photos that we're not used to seeing on social media, but for menstruators, it's a daily routine. So these were deleted from Instagram, which is just showing the censorship of menstruation. And since we're working to destigmatize, does anyone have any reactions to these photos? Do you think they belong on social media, or is this what is termed as disgusting?
Just to sort of go off what you said about like it being considered disgusting, like I think there's this idea that like our daily routine makes us like uglier because of like menstruation, and I think that like it is this like weird power dynamic where there's this like one very natural part of our livelihood that makes us uglier and like more disgusting and more untouchable. And I don't know, that's just pretty effed.
I'm just confused as to like what the reason behind these pictures being removed from Instagram was, because like there's no nudity, there's blood, but it's not violent blood. Like I just don't see, there's nothing wrong with those images, and I don't understand why Instagram is like, oh, that's bad.
So is there general agreement that we think these pictures should be accepted by society, and that Instagram was wrong in removing them? So this is a poem by the author who actually posted those images, and I think it's just really beautiful. So I'll just read out loud. You can read to yourself. Apparently, it is ungraceful of me to mention my period in public, because the actual biology of my body is too real. It's okay to sell what's between a woman's legs more than it is okay to mention its inner workings. The recreational use of this body is seen as beautiful, while its nature is seen as ugly.
So before we start this slide, I think it's important to mention that in doing this research for this brown bag, we were really trying to find statistics that included non-binary and trans folk, and there is just limited to no data on that population, which is another way in which the period stigma and stigma against non-binary and trans folk resonate. So that's just important to remember that that was something we really considered, but unfortunately there is just no data on that.
Yeah, so going quickly through some fast facts about period stigmas. 71% of women have hidden their menstrual products while on their way to the bathroom. I know a lot of my friends have done this. I used to do this a lot. And 58% of women have felt embarrassed about their periods. 42% of women have experienced period shaming. And yeah, so it is important that men and non-menstruators are also included in the conversation, because a lot of the shame that comes from, a lot of the period stigma comes from comments that are made by male friends to their female friends, and even just how men react in professional settings to people getting their periods.
So this slide is more specifically about Colgate. The first thing is let's go over the DEI plan first. So this section of the DEI plan, or the next 100 years plan, mentions that the distribution of free menstrual products in appropriate bathrooms around campus has already begun and ongoing, and that resources will be driven by utilization. So there's a couple of things that are kind of iffy about this. I think the first is the word appropriate bathrooms. We're not exactly sure what that refers to. Does appropriate mean only women's bathrooms? Does it mean only bathrooms that people use often? Because we don't know. And I think it's interesting to think about how the word appropriate is completely unnecessary there. And if you remove it, the sentence would almost mean the same thing without like this iffy, questionable thing in it. And talking about the dispensers, there are dispensers on campus. I don't know if anyone has seen them. There are dispensers. I don't know about men's bathrooms, but in women's bathrooms, there's definitely dispensers in at least like a good portion of them. And the thing about the dispensers is that the tampons aren't in the dispensers. They're left under the dispensers, and so they're just like free out in the air, and if they even are there. And one of the things that we found these pads. This photo was taken a couple months ago, October 18th, that's my birthday. So I feel kind of bad about this. This is on my birthday. We found a pad that expired in the year 1995. And I think the interesting thing about this is that even if this photo wasn't taken on my birthday, it was definitely taken after the year 95. So this photo, even if you don't believe that it's taken on my birthday, it is definitely taken in the modern era. So we found those in one of the bathrooms. Where was it? In the wing. In the building right over there. We found these pads. Why do we care that we have tampons and other products available to menstruators? So we care because it does interrupt your education when you're trying to go to class and then you suddenly get your period and it's like, oh my god, do I like just go to class and just like deal with it, or do I go and be late to class so I can go somewhere and find products? And another reason is that we asked this question on the Holy Week, and I've heard that it's like, it was my experience and a lot of other people's experience, menstruators, that their professors would be like, you can't leave the classroom during the class period, which is like, I don't know, like even like, just forget about menstruation, even with someone's bladder, I don't know how that's healthy, but just thinking about like the fact that your needs, your hygiene needs, your medical needs are being restricted by the fact that you have to stay in the classroom. And it's, I don't know if anyone's ever had this experience where you're just existing and then your period starts. It's not very pleasant. And I imagine like my first reaction was freaking out. And I think the video, like the parts that I really connected with was first when the people were like checking their pants. I was like, yes, like, and in the classroom, usually I'm so scared of getting up. I'm terrified, especially when the professor's like, you can't leave the room. I'm just like, well, I guess I'm just living here now. But yeah, and another thing with Colgate specifically is the dispensers. And when that guy was trying to get a tampon out of the dispenser and there was none, I went through that a couple months ago, and then I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna move on with my day and just run home and just try to pull this down, making sure no one sees my pants.
So just to kind of extend that conversation about what period stigma looks at Colgate. So our club was created a couple years ago. We've had a lot of difficulty with getting period products on campus, obviously, and that's why we're still here, even though it's, I always say that our club just should not exist, because it should just be something that's provided. So you can read a little bit about it. We have been in contact with the administration, projects have been stalled. There was a pilot program with the dispensers that was stalled. A Colgate alumni offered to donate to put products in the rest of the bathrooms, which was blocked. And there was like a whole idea about raising money for period products, which was approved, but then eventually blocked. So just a lot of struggle with attaining products, which should just be something that's provided already.
Can you explain a little bit why they would block a perhaps you don't know, but why would you block a donation? Like, what's the harm in
Yeah.
a donation?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. Yeah. So it's just been a bit of a struggle, but that's just a little bit about us and about how I personally see and how we experience period stigma at Colgate is just like in the creation of this club, really.
Yeah, we talked about the donation a lot last semester in our club, and the thing about that bothered me. Well, I'm a freshman, so I joined the club last semester, and the thing that was very just like as a person of a lower economic class coming here and not really like being used to large sums of money, it was just like the amount of money that we acquired through donation and now we just can't use. It's like there and we're looking at it and it's like beautiful, but we just can't use it. And I think that's funny. It's really funny. So on this slide, we can see all the different types of menstrual products. And I think like what's important to remember is that not every menstruator can use all of these products, or just people's bodies are different, and your needs are different. And also another thing to keep in mind, that question we had on the poll about non-toxic products. A lot of the big companies that produce these products don't really like come forward with all the things that's in it. So you might be using a product that has bleach in it or other toxic materials, and a lot of these obviously come into contact with your body. Some of them go inside of you, and we need on this campus and everywhere, we need organic products because these are our bodies and we only get one. And can we go to the next slide, please? And menstruators have an average of 400 periods in their lifetime. That's a lot of opportunity for you to get an infection or anything from these products that are toxic and not good for your body. So there's so much room for complications, and that needs to be addressed.
Right, like you may laugh at $900 for chocolate, not necessarily everyone's spending that, but this just goes to show that there's more than just tampons when it comes to periods. There's so many other prices that you acquire, and when there's a tampon tax, on top of all of that, it's not helping anyone, so there needs to be a recognition within administration, within everybody, that a period is so much more than just shamefully buying a tampon. There's so much more to consider with it in terms of the pain people go through. It manifests itself differently in everybody. And so this is just one sample average of what people choose to spend money on. But there's so much more to consider.
Yeah, and just before we go on, just to add to that, so like when I saw this, the chocolate and I was like, but chocolate is actually, I mean, I don't have like the source of what I'm about to say, but like feel free to look it up afterwards. It's actually been shown to help with like iron levels during periods, which is especially dark chocolate. And as you know, when you bleed, you lose blood, and blood has iron in it, and you're losing that. And it can also help with cramps and the birth control. That's also a big portion of the cost of periods. Many menstruators struggle with really severe cramps or irregular periods, and birth control can help with those side effects. So it's often utilized by menstruators. And also can we go back to the slide before? Yeah, so what kinds of products like we want to like, use. So actually go back to the slide before. Sorry. Last year the CGA sold 100 subsidized menstrual cups on campus, and that was kind of has been used as a reasoning against providing other menstrual products, because these cups, like the argument is that these cups are reusable, so therefore you shouldn't need one-time use products. However, menstrual cups, first of all, even if you don't buy them subsidized, they're really expensive, but also they don't work for everyone. It's not a one-size-fits-all sort of thing. Everyone's anatomy is different. So there needs to be a wide variety of products offered, because not every product is going to work for every single menstruator.
So what do we do to destigmatize talking about periods and just periods in general? Well, one thing that I think we haven't mentioned yet is that the stigma around periods isn't like a Colgate specific event. It's not a Colgate specific phenomenon. It just is in the universe, in our societies. And the question really is, what is Colgate doing, and what are we as members of this community doing to fix that? And so here are some questions that people ask. Some questions that people might have about periods in general. Why is my blood clumpy? Why is my blood brown? Do bananas actually help with cramps? Who knows the answer? I really don't. Does it always hurt to fill out a tampon? So these questions, there's a stigma around asking them, and I feel like for me, there's a stigma even about like having these questions. And so talking about it is the only thing that's gonna make it better.
And also the stigma around menstruation is also further pushed, I guess, by the many euphemisms that we use and that exist, like time of the month, female troubles, Aunt Flo, on the rag. According to Berkeley, there's like over 5,000 euphemisms for a period in just 10 languages. So that's a lot of other words to avoid saying period, which I think is definitely not a good thing. Alright.
So just in terms of period shaming and how period stigma manifests itself, we all have personal stories. We all can relate to the next video of asking someone for a tampon, or of excusing yourself during class. So personally, my mom's an OBGYN. So when I was growing up, when I first got my period, I immediately had help, and I got everything I needed in order to not have period blood affect my life, not have cramps affect my life. So birth control products. When I went on my first hiking trip for 3 weeks, and was like, the last thing I want to do is put a bloody tampon into the ground or to have to deal with this at night in my sleeping bag. Birth control was that choice that I had, and that's not available to everyone. And if we start to talk about it more, if everyone had moms that were OBGYNs, but if everyone had that education to help you through that process, because it's difficult stumbling around in 5th and 6th grade, not being able to talk about it with your friends, and not being able to necessarily ask your parents about it. There's so many different situations that this manifests. So that's my personal story. And we'll share a few more, but if you think of any stories that you have to share about period stigma.
Yeah, and if you feel moved by anything we're saying, please raise your hand, like share also. This is completely open discussion. Just like trying to break the that kind of like barrier. So I have a similar experience to Rami. I went on birth control at like the ripe old age of like 12 or 13 because I was having really severe periods, and that's not something that was really talked about like among my friends. It's not something that's really talked about in general. But that really, really helped me. I was literally getting my period every 2 weeks, and it was literal hell. I like turned into a monster because of PMS. So I don't know, just having that conversation is really important. And if anyone wants to share.
My story is more about like the elegance of this topic. I think like one thing that was wrong with all the stats that we had, that we also mentioned, is that they specifically are about women. Last night I was like really like scared that I would use the word women instead of menstruators, and so I spent some time looking for actual stats that would just be about menstruators instead of just women, and I couldn't find any. But the point of that story is that I grew up in a much more patriarchal society than this, and the way that I experienced my period and just talking about period was not talking about it and acting like you are not experiencing it. And I also, like in the society I live, being anything but cisgender and heterosexual was absolutely not a concept. And obviously there are, I am, but you were not allowed to be. And so that type of, I guess like not education, but that type of experience growing up, like from childhood, like all I know is that women do this. And like when we were preparing this, like in my head, I'm like, I know that it's not just women, and I believe that, and I know that, but still the language is such an elegant thing because it's just ingrained in me to say women bleed, and that's wrong. And I it's my bad, and I'm trying to fix that. And I just think it's like important to point out why appropriate bathrooms is kind of a tacky thing because it's appropriate is a very tacky word. I think that menstrual products should be available to all menstruators, whether you use each of these very cis bathrooms, but you know.
I'll share a story or two about my experiences. I think I haven't really ever felt like super ashamed of well, I don't know. I don't really remember. But when I remember in middle school, I know a lot of people can relate to this. Menstruators can relate to this. When I first got my period in 7th grade, dealing with it was the worst nightmare ever. I remember like I would get it the night before, and then I would spend like an hour like making a master plan of like when I was going to go to the bathroom, like where I'd hide my pad, where I'd hide the tampon, and it was just so much work because I was just so scared of like a boy or even other girls seeing that I had a tampon and just knowing that I was on my period, and I didn't want anyone to know that I was. So I would really like try so hard to hide them everywhere. I would like leave class and be like, oh, I'm just going to blow my nose, and then stand over my backpack in the hallway hunched over, like trying to maneuver my hand finding the pad. Another story, I was at an airport, I got my period, and I was in the TSA line, which was which was an hour, maybe too long. I waited a long time. And I remember I was just crying in the TSA line, being so pissed at the TSA and my parents that I couldn't leave the line to go put a tampon in. And I was just bleeding there, and it was just awful. And I don't know if anyone else here can relate, but I kind of laugh at that. So yeah.
Yeah, so we can open it up. If you all have any ideas of what it's like to menstruate at Colgate. I know that it's happened to me multiple times where I'm like, oh, do I be late to class or free bleed, and what's the option? Like what work needs to be done, general reactions to what we've talked about today. Agree, disagree, anything. All opinions.
Hello, friends. I'm going to talk about my menstrual cup. It's really cool. I've had it for like a year and a half now. It was like, it took a lot of work at the beginning to like figure out how to put it inside of me and get it to sit where it wouldn't leak. And I was like, ah! And the first time it took me a literal half an hour plus to get it so that I was like, all right, like, she's not going to fall out of me. We're good. And it's just like, but it's so, it makes me so, like, it feels good for me to know that, like, hey, like, I haven't bought pads or tampons in a year and a half now. Like, that's a lot of money. And also, it just feels good not to be, polluting the planet. Not that there's.
I know back in my undergrad, I had one of those horrifying experiences sitting in class and then got my period in class. And I knew I was like crampy and I had leggings on, and we all, like, anyone who wears them knows that they're thin as fuck. So I actually like bled into the seat and I was horrified. And I just want to shout out to Dr. Samantha Jansen at Wichita State University. She had her PhD, but she was my DTA teaching the class, and I cried. I sat in the seat, and this professor literally helped me scrub my period out of the seat. And she was like, the same thing happened to me before, and this was like having a professor that was like, yeah, like shit happens, or blood happens, and helping me just move on. She's never brought it up to me, and like that in my own life has just helped me, like, this. It's just a part of life, and then fabric seats are sometimes evil.
I'm going to run the mic, but I also have something to share. I have PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and one of the symptoms of it is like a really irregular period. But because like we never talked about it, and when I got my period, my mom just like gave me a book and closed the door. I didn't really consider it to be like a symptom or anything like that, so I didn't get diagnosed until I was 27. And I feel like if conversations could be different and discussions about irregularities and things like that could be different, then I could have been diagnosed sooner and I could be getting better sooner. Health, imagine, amazing. But I'm gonna run the mic because I like chatting with you all and connecting.
I think it's kind of funny how Colgate gives out condoms in bulk, but like because it goes to show that Colgate cares more about its image of teen pregnancy rates rather than our own biological health. And I feel like our own health should not be not prioritized. Like talking about your well-being should not be something that carries a stigma.
Thank you for sharing. Any ideas? How do we destigmatize? What does that look like?
I was just thinking about how, like, part of destigmatizing periods is the idea that, like, getting your period is becoming a woman, and, like, that has its own issues because it excludes a lot of menstruators, but also kind of, like, the sexualization of that. Like I remember getting my period and talking to my friends. It's like, oh, like, I'm becoming a woman, like, almost, like, and a lot of times, like, in history, it's kind of, like, equated to, like, being ready to be like sexually active. So destigmatizing that idea as well. Like we don't want to talk about periods, but when we do talk about periods openly, like there's like this sexual factor to it. So I think there's like additional problems to that.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell another quick story about because you mentioned undergrad. So last year I actually had tampon had fallen out of my coat. And my male professor actually picked it up and just like, he was like, here you go. And like, he did it so nonchalantly. And I really appreciated that he treated it. Like, I honestly, maybe he didn't even know that it was a tampon. I don't know, but either way, like, he wasn't like, oh, what is this? Like, it was just super casual. And I was a little embarrassed, which I shouldn't be embarrassed. But it was still just, I'm happy that, yeah. So it was a good experience.
If you're non-menstruating, you can talk about what allyship looks like. Anything goes.
Okay, fine. Really quickly on the. You have to there.
Yeah, so since some of the administration is here, and in an effort to like ensure that we get products, they've talked about a lot about like the cups and things. I think they're great. Obviously, they save like so much like paper and things. But being a freshman, like to clean them properly, you need to boil them. Being a freshman, like I can't boil things here. So like yes, it is good that you guys had a sale and the SGA had a sale, but like that doesn't account for the products that aren't being supplied. Is all I'm gonna say.
There's more than 100 menstruators on here.
That's true. It's 51.9. I was waiting for someone else who wants to respond. I was at a male comedian last year. He's like heterosexual, cisgender male, and he asked the crowd if tampons hurt going in, and whether, and then he also asked if tampons feel good going in. Just to think about how our lack of talking about periods is affecting people who don't menstruate, that they need to learn what it actually feels like to put a tampon in.
Going off of that, and I guess what Mac was saying about kind of sexualizing our periods, I remember being especially embarrassed when I was younger about using tampons instead of pads. And I would mention, maybe in middle school or beginning of high school, that I would mention them and ask, like if my friends had a period or something and they needed something, I'd say, oh, I have tampons, I don't have pads. And they'd be like, oh no, like, I'm a virgin. I don't use tampons. I'd be like, okay, I don't know what that means, but okay. So I think that's just another example of how, like, we deem it as so inappropriate in so many ways, and just all the more reason that we need to be having these conversations so that these like misconceptions aren't what
kids understand as like their first interpretation of menstrual products.
I think that when we're talking about destigmatization, I think it also is important to start that at an earlier age, so like middle school or even high school, because this is honestly like my first time talking about my period in such a large setting. Because personally, like I got my first period when I was in 4th grade, and I was 9.5, and we didn't have any period products available on campus, like in the bathrooms, and like there were so many times where I would bleed onto my pants in class, and I'd be so afraid to stand up because I would, in case anyone saw me or like if any boys would make fun of me. And my teacher, my 4th grade teacher, just didn't handle it very well. She would like pull me aside, and sometimes she would send me to the office where I had to wait for my mom to come and bring me a change of pants. And it was just like a really bad thing for me because one, it interrupted my education, and two, it was just like the embarrassment of it is just not something that a 9-year-old wants to go through. And also like thinking about what allyship looks like. So last semester, so I had this group chat with my friends, and one of my female friends, she needed a tampon, and one of the guys responded and he said, "Oh, I'll get you a tampon." And I just liked that he was so cool about it, and how he was like, "Yeah, you need this right now, so I'm gonna like," and he was on the other side of campus too, so he was literally gonna go and get a tampon for her and bring it to her and walk all the way across campus to do so. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Piggyback off of Laura, I remember that my school gave sex ed before any sort of period education. We didn't really have any period education. I think my school did really well with sex education. I really appreciate that. But I remember, like, I got my first period in 5th grade, and when it happened, I probably wouldn't have known what to do. Except at that moment, I'd unfortunately like broken both of my arms, so I was in a double cast, and at that moment, I got my period. So my poor mother was forced to like help me do the like change my pad, and she went through a lot. Oh my God. I'm so grateful. Anyway, but through that process, it forced me to actually converse with my mom about what was happening with my body. And if that had not been the case, I probably wouldn't have known what to do. And I also remember, it's kind of funny, when I first got my first period, she was like, "Oh my God, you have to tell your dad." And I was like, "What? I have to do what?" So I remember walking out into the living room and just like blurting it out. And he looked at me like deer in headlights expression. And I walked away. And that was the one time I've ever mentioned my period ever to him. And so kind of going back to your mother who's an OBGYN, I think it's great to have a supportive mom who helps you through the process, because like as a menstruator, you can learn from their experiences also. But I think it's important to have the dad or the father figure, or like the non-menstruator role model also be involved in the process and the education. I feel like that is something we need to talk about more, and I think it's just really important.
Any closing thoughts?
So I went to an all-boys school in high school, and so you can kind of already imagine there was no education whatsoever on periods and how that works for women. And so, and as someone else was saying over there, like education needs to be at a younger age, instead of like having to learn through like conversations with my sisters and my female friends. That it needs to be taught, and I wholeheartedly believe that like at a younger age, like periods need to be taught and destigmatized.
Thank you guys for coming.
We meet on Tuesdays at 4:20 in there.
Oh, and we have one exciting event planned, but many more to talk about. But our big exciting event is a pillow making party. And if you want, it could be in the shape of a uterus. So that will be coming up. So be sure to publicize that. Yeah, so many crafting communities working to destigmatize menstruation. Any support you get is awesome. Thank you so much for
Please, any ideas, questions, issues, anything, please come talk to us. Thank you all for your time.
What? No, I was like, our sex, good for you. Go. So I know this here, I want to make sure you get this in the bag. This guy over here is like, do you see him like how uncomfortable he is?
But yeah, I really appreciate that. And if you have any ideas of how to do that, yeah, I know,
That's the thing too. Actually, I never felt comfortable even like it's just a lot. Like you can go swimming in this hand, you can't swim. No. Like it's just how much you have to sacrifice for this thing you have to do. That's right. You gotta have like the crewmates how to allow
one of them talks, so that's like
I thought it was good.
Once I actually sat down to go over some things, I don't know how it worked out.
Hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Do you?